Welcome to Death Holler. Do you like scary movies? Welcome to Season 3, Slash or Pass. There will be laughter, tears, tender moments.
Jason, my special boy.
But most of all, screams. Remember, when you're in Death Holler, listener discretion is always advised. We hope you have a killer time.
Welcome back, everybody, to Death Holler. This is the second part of our Bloody Valentine's episode. I am your host, Reverend Dr. Death, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, La Llareyna. We are discussing My Bloody Valentine this episode, both the original and the remake. First up is the 1981 My Bloody Valentine, with tagline, "This Valentine's Day, romance is dead."
So cheesy.
Directed... There's going to be more later, so be prepared. Directed by George Mahalka, written by Stephen A. Miller, who did the story concepts, and John Beard. So that's kind of a good sign, folks. You've only got two people really involved in the writing of this. Music by Paul Zaza, made on a budget of 2.3 million Canadian dollars. Which is and I actually did the math on this. I went back and looked at the conversion rates for that time period because that's what a nerd I am. And it was 1.93 million US dollars.
Okay.
But it made 5.7 million US dollars. So decent turnaround for this movie as far as like its payoff. Principal players in this is Lori Hallier, who plays Sarah, who is our final girl. She was in a movie called Heartstopper. She'd done tons of TV work, including Twilight Zone, Friday the 13th, the TV series, Star Trek Voyager. We have Peter Cowper playing the miner / Harry Warden, who is our slasher in the movie. And he was in the only other thing he's really done since then is a fan film called Valentine Bluffs, which is the 2023 My Bloody Valentine fan film. I think is maybe coming out according to what given the fact it's this year, I think it's set to come out this year.
Okay.
Paul Kellman plays Jesse T.J. Hanniger, who the only other real movie that he was in that of note was Black Roses, which is a pretty crazy demonic / horror, rock band type movie.
Okay.
Neil Affleck, and I don't know if he's related to Ben, is Axel Palmer. He was in Scanners, and he's actually one director of animated television, of all things. He had Simpsons, Family Guy, and several others amongst his credits as a director, and it's all animated stuff. Patricia Hamilton plays Mabel. Jack Van Evera plays Happy. Carl Marotte plays Dave. Helen Udy plays Sylvia. Thomas Kovacs plays Mike. Terry Waterland plays Harriet. Keith Knight plays Hollis. Alf Humphreys plays Howard. And Cynthia Dale plays Patty. And the synopsis for this movie is that 20 years after the sole survivor of a mine tunnel collapse turned cannibal and killed his two supervisors, ripping their hearts out, by the way, and putting them in a little heart-shaped box of candies, the town of Valentine Bluffs has decided to put on a Valentine's Day celebration. Ignoring the warnings of the institutionalized killer and the local doomsayer, the town experiences another round of killings. Pickaxes plunge into the faces. Virginal lovers are impaled when they first engage in coitus. And hot dogs aren't the only things getting boiled. This Valentine's Day, cross your heart and hope to die. That's another tagline from the movie.
Fucking nerd. Good God. These are they're like dad jokes.
They all are. Body count in this movie is impressive. It's actually 16.
Holy crap, that is so big. That's what she said. Is that the biggest so far?
No, I feel like, it's not going to be compared to whenever My Bloody Valentine 2009 takes its, unzips it and just flops it on the table for us. But, so far, I mean, it's up there. It beats a lot of the Friday the 13th movies on kill count.
I mean, I guess the first four, and I know you're going to get into it, are kind of, I guess we technically had that with the second film too, or the remake, but they're kind of just casualties.
They're deaths, but they're not necessarily ones you see, And it possibly has 18 kills. We'll get into that. Anyways, the lady in the mine is impaled through the back, against the rod or whatever. And that's the beginning of the movie. She's kind of she's in a miner's outfit. She's seducing the miner that's shown at the beginning of the movie, kind of stripping down, which is the only time in the movie we get any kind of boobage at all, really, which is, yet again, here we are. But the next movie will make up for that a lot. But anyways.
Not a lot. I'm just kidding.
A lot. Anyways, she has the little heart-shaped tattoo over her where her heart would be at, and the miner gets aggressive and he forces her again, and then the rod comes through the back through her heart, and then there's kind of a scream that and a zoom in as she's screaming, and then we get our beginning credits. So that's how the movie starts.
It gets right into it.
What's that?
It gets right into it.
Yeah, it goes straight into the kills right from the get-go. That's exactly what I was getting ready to say. Then we have 4 different miners that are killed and eaten by Henry Warden. They're not really, on screen. There was a tunnel collapse, and he had to eat the bodies to survive, but they are in the movie as far as counts.
It's like an Oregon Trail or a Donner Party situation. He may or may not have done it for survival in terms of obviously staying alive by eating, but also breathing because oxygen is limited.
Yeah, well, I mean, they bring up the oxygen thing in the remake, but in this one, he's been underground for 6 weeks. He had to survive off eating their bodies,
Well, there you go.
The 2 mining supervisors are killed with pickaxes and their hearts ripped out. Mabel is killed with a pickaxe off screen.
Boo.
Happy gets a pickaxe through the neck and out the eye, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Dave gets his head boiled alongside some wieners. Sylvia is impaled through the back of a head with a pipe.
Sick.
Mike is found impaled with a drill bit. Harriet is found impaled with him with a drill bit because they were engaged in sex at the time.
More than one type of impaling going on here.
Oh, yeah, getting drilled all kinds of ways. Going back to what we said in our previous episode of Valentine, that whole getting screwed, being a literal, interpretation. Hollis is shot twice in the head with a nail gun. Howard is found, his body is found hung, and then his head completely pops off the body, which is a fucking cool ass kill, actually. Patty has a pickaxe to the gut, pretty simple, but it works.
Mm-hmm.
And then the non-counted deaths, the ones that make it up to 18, is that Harry Warden himself dies at some unknown time 5 years before the film's events. And then Axel presumably dies at the end of the movie. Quote, a little spoiler there, folks. Axel's the killer in this movie.
Yeah.
And he presumably bleeds out in the cave after he cuts his own damn arm off to escape everybody. So,
or does he,
Wow, there you go. Quotes, Axel Palmer singing to himself, and this is toward the end of the film. Sarah, be my bloody Valentine. Daddy's gone away. Harry Warden made you pay. Axel Palmer, you seen Sarah, Jesse, TJ Hanniger. Ain't my turn to watch after her, which is funny because he just got through basically smooching her. So that was pretty, interesting. Mabel Osborne reading a Valentine note. And this is funny given the fact we just talked about Valentine, but roses are red, violets are blue, one is dead, and so are you. Landers, Harry Warden did it. And the only reason I put that in there is because that's literally, if you look at the guy's lines throughout the movie, it's some variation of that. That's all the guy says.
Oh my
the entire
God.
movie.
That's sad.
Because he's playing the character that Shelby played in Friday the 13th Part 3. He's the guy who's always, the boy who cried wolf. Basically, he keeps saying Harry did it, and then like as a joke because he always shows up with a bloody face or some kind of nonsense to scare everybody.
Yeah,
and then when the killings actually start happening, then they don't really believe it. So. Also, Howard Landers, Gretchen, what would look really good on you? Gretchen responds back, what? And then Howard Landers, perfect pickup line, me. And then she's like, suck it in and zip it up, will you? As a response back to him.
Yeah.
Let's see, alternate taglines for this movie. I'm just going to throw them out there real quick. Harry's out to steal your heart, or Henry, however, I think it's Harry. Anyways, heart burn, Sarah, be my bloody Valentine.
Boo.
It's such a cold movie. You'll want to see it over and over again. Not
horrible.
Cool, but cold.
Horrible.
Roses are red, violets are blue. One is dead. The next is you. Not too bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
There's more than one way to lose your heart.
Oh, that one's so lovey.
Valentine's Day will never be the same again. That one's kind of just on the nose, so whatever.
It's a no for me.
What do you think about this movie? Like, I mean, me and my wife actually enjoyed it. Like, we didn't think we would, but like going back and talking about it, there's parts, comparing it, especially to 2009, there's parts of this movie that I like better than 2009.
I have to agree with you on that.
And one of the things I like better about it is the fact that the people who involved in this, the getting killed, are minors, MINERS, not MINORS. But anyways, coal miners. But it makes sense. I mean, they're just wanting to have a kind of a Valentine's Day celebration to blow off steam from working in the coal mines. The camaraderie is there amongst everybody.
Yes.
Me and my wife talked about this. We feel like it really sold the characters better in this movie. Like, I mean, they seemed like real people.
Yes. Excuse me.
Especially Hollis. Like, he's one of the ones that stood out for me. He's kind of the fat, heavy-set one with a curled mustache or whatever. I mean, there's several times in the film where he's like, kind of busting up some of, like the fights between TJ and Axel and just, him carousing around with some of the women or whatever there that like just felt natural for like this, kind of like burly, minor.
Yeah. Well, that's what I liked about the characters in this film is that in terms of being real, it felt like a bunch of people that would look out for each other. I mean, that's kind of what you get in a small town. Yeah, you're gonna get your assholes. You're gonna get your people that don't always mean well. But as a whole, they kind of gave off that vibe.
I agree with that 100%. Like, and then even like the reactions by the local town sheriff whenever he's investigating, like he's really freaked out by the fact that all this stuff is happening, and like he seems genuinely concerned for his community. Like, in the movie, like whenever he's talking, he's like, shut that fucking party down, basically, like that sort of thing. Like, he's really like concerned, or at least he sells that he's concerned.
Yeah,
and I gotta admit, like, I mean, and we'll get into this more in the 2009 discussion here in a few minutes, but I just feel like the 2009 version, like there's 2 or 3 people in the movie that are standout, and then the rest of the characters I could care less about.
Yeah.
In this movie, everybody felt like legit. Like, they felt like you felt like you were watching like a little snippet from this community or something.
Yeah, there was because like in comparison to the two films, it felt like in the 2009 version, it felt like only the older people were trying to hold it together, which I guess that can technically make sense. But then you got this generation of kids that, what are they going to do to not benefit from it, but what are they going to do to uphold that? And I'm not really seeing what that is. And it's like, well, you old ones are like 1 foot in the grave as it is already, and you still work in the mines, which is, I mean, I know that's a thing, but these were like anciently old people, it looked like. I guess the mines will do that too. Maybe they were in their 50s for all we know.
Well, and that's the other thing. Well, I mean, that will age you. I mean, that's a whole other thing because, the coal mines in Appalachia and all that stuff, there's, that whole thing. But that was the other thing, too. It's like the characters in this movie they worked in the mines, and you got more of a connection to the mines, miners themselves. And like, and I felt like that grounded the movie was in a way that the remake doesn't have.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seemed like in this one, everybody cared versus just a few people.
Yeah, there's like in the new movie, the only people that really care is like the, Ben, which I know we're kind of conflating, but we're going to be going back and forth in the comparisons anyways. But there's the old guy, Ben, who is involved with helping Tom in the new movie sell off the mines. And then there's the old sheriff. And then there's that one guy who was like his deputy or whatever at one point in time. And they're really like the only ones that you really get a sense of that cares about the community. And then everything else is like internal drama. Yeah. Whereas in this movie, and I think this movie's better in a sense, the camaraderie and then the antagonistic relationship between TJ and Axel is so much more natural in this movie than between Axel and, Dean Winchester in the new movie.
And there's the first drop.
Yeah, well, I had to say it. I mean, I could have said Jensen, but whatever. Yeah. But I mean, I got the sense that they really were friends, but that they were competing for the same woman. Like it felt natural between the two of them in this movie versus like and me and my wife talked about it. Axel is just a complete asshole in the new movie. And there's a sense that he just hates Tom's guts the entire movie. Like, there's no sense that they were ever friends or, anything like that. Whereas in this one, like when they need to join up together, to like overcome something, they'll put aside their differences and they'll even pal around with each other.
Definitely Axel had a guilty jealousy in the second film, because here we are, he never liked this guy in the first place, in which they show in the film, but they don't really give a reason, whatever.
No, they don't, like at all. It's just that he mentions there's offhand mark to Sarah that it's like, well, Tom better not show his fucking face, and it's like, why? You gave no back history of why you don't like the guy.
Exactly, and then we have he was saying that to Irene, wasn't he? Was the second film?
Yeah, okay. He was saying it to Irene because you're right. Sarah shows up with Tom.
Yes,
that's
with
right.
Tom, and then so at some twist of fate, like Dean Winchester goes away, who was dating Sarah, and comes back, and all of a sudden Axel's jealous of him. Homie disappeared for like almost a decade and has not had any contact with Sarah, and all of a sudden he's worried about Sarah being unfaithful when he's banging Sarah's coworker.
Well, I've said this before. The guys who are so obsessed with that stuff are usually projecting. Yeah. So, they're jealous because they've been doing it themselves, and so they project. But also, it's Dean Winchester. If Jensen Ackles is your, significant other, your spouse is like, ex, you got a reason to be, a little bit concerned because, I mean, you're almost like, you look at him, it's like, fuck, just go to him. Like, I don't.
And he's got a lot of money, or he's set to gain a lot of money by selling off these mines. Leave this podunk town.
But yeah, I just. Going back to the original film, I just feel like Axel and TJ are a lot, their dynamic is a lot more layered and a lot more interesting than what they give in the remake.
100%.
And like I said, I even though like a lot of the characters, I didn't really like connect with them, like the ones that like, I mean, even the ones that I didn't connect with, they felt like they were just like if you were in a real community like that they'd be people you'd see off in the background. Like, they all added, like we said, to the cohesion of the movie and made it feel like it was, like a lived in place. Whereas in the new one, it's almost like a soap opera type thing. It's like you're seeing a few people like kind of whine and cry at each other, and then like people are dying, but then like you don't really see much of the town responding to it. Whereas in this one, the town's like, everybody's, worried about it.
Yeah, everyone's invested.
The one thing that I have a problem, I mean, that the two don't really stand up together, and this is a fact of budgets for sure, is that visually, of course, the new one beats the shit out of this movie as far as like visual effects. Well,
because technically, the pass that I'm going to give the newer one is that it was made for 3D technically.
Yeah,
and does not hold up if you're not watching it 3D.
Well, there is that, and there's one other thing, that the CG blood in the new one is very glaring now, like when you go back and watch it, because like the blood splatter effects are way too outlandish in the new one, and this movie felt natural. Like, we go back to the word natural, but like when the deaths occur, like it seemed more like what you would think the deaths would look like, you know, in that case.
And I know that these are both dark films, but I have to throw out there how the lighting is going to be what it is in 1981, but by leaps and bounds, it was better than 2009. The lighting was fucking horrible in 2009. The characters looked horrible. Nothing about the lighting was beneficial to them, other than this is what character you're dealing with. Nothing like, it didn't glamify any of the women. It didn't show any decent features of Dean Winchester. It just, like, I know he's supposed to look dark and brooding, but it made them look drowned out, drab, and I don't know if that's the look they were going for. It was washed out in the 2009.
Here's what I thought of whenever I saw the movie, and it was exemplified by that scene between Jensen and I've got it in front of me here, so it'll be when we get to 2009 when I mention her name. But the girl who played Sarah in that movie, Jamie King, I believe is her name. Anyways, with that scene with them on the bridge where they're kind of talking to each other, and like, and a horrible bit of acting on her behalf too. I know I'm skipping ahead to that movie, but it's her like bottom lip is like quavering just a little bit or quivering, and it's just like she's overplaying it. And of course Jensen's like, perfect. Like, I mean, he's the best actor in the movie, he by bar none in the remake. But anyways, like he's sitting there and they're going back and forth. The lighting is very like flat, like we talked about before. When you want a movie to be like, have more of a visual style that makes it seem like a movie, you need to like contrast lighting. It was too natural. Like it was a washed out, like Seattle, like, overcast look.
Oh my God, big time.
The entire movie kind of gave me that vibe.
Yes. It did, but it was their faces too, because you can have the background look like a washed out Seattle, totally fine. But the characters, there's no amount of makeup that could have saved them from how they were looking, very lifeless almost.
And then going back to this movie as a comparison, especially the scenes where everybody's like kind of having fun at the like local bar or inside that, inside that building that's, next to the tunnels or whatever at the mine, it's like they're very natural, like rosy cheeks, like they look like, you would think a person would look like, in real life.
100%.
The lighting brought that up. One other thing about the lighting, it's a reverse thing of what you're talking about. When the tunnel needs to look like an actual mine tunnel, the original beats the shit out of the new one, because the new one's too lit.
Oh yes,
like that scene's the beginning of the movie when Henry, whatever his name is, Harry Warden, shows up, and the three were trying to hide. That was Irene, Axel, and Sarah from him. I'm like, how's he not fucking see? I know he's got the mask on, but I'm like, they're brightly lit. Like you can see them clear as day. Like they're, whereas in like the original movie, if they went into a darker tunnel, like it had that look, like the tunnel should have looked.
Yeah. Well, it was funny too, because even like it was lit so much. There was lighting no matter where you went. They still had flashlights, which was just comical.
And the flashlight, that shows you how well lit it was. The flashlights barely showed anything.
Yes, and you did not see the flashlights flashing. But let's suspend disbelief for a minute. Let's pretend that they did need that flashlight. At the beginning, right before, I think it was Sarah and Irene and Axel are probably going to get murdered or are at risk of getting murdered, she's holding the flashlight up to her face. It's still lit. She has it on to the last minute. Those things click like a motherfucker when you turn them off. And he's literally like 2 feet away from them at this point, and she barely shuts it off in time. You know, she has something over her mouth. You know, obviously Axel has a hand over her mouth, Sarah's mouth, so she doesn't scream. But the click alone and the light, let's say if it wasn't lit enough, he would have seen them.
Yeah, I mean, all the way around it to make any sense. When I saw that scene, I'm like, this is. I mean, I know that he's kind of like, you know, around the time of that, he's got other people in the tunnels that he's killing.
Yeah,
but like, I mean, they're not enough of a distraction from. I mean, there's not enough of a distraction from them.
Yeah,
to him not to, like you said, heard that, seen the light, anything like that. I mean, in the tunnel, and it's just, and it just. I mean, like I said, the realism or, you know, the believability is way higher in the original when it comes to any of that stuff.
100%. Because at least when they're wearing their helmets, you're like, oh, well, they need these. Not just for safety. You need these to see because it's not as lit as you would need it or want it to be, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, even like the one scene at the end of the movie, or, you know, kind of like the red herring where it looks like Axel in the original film has like fallen into the 60-foot, you know, water pit or whatever, and you know, is lost to the depths or whatever. It's dark enough to where you can actually see the helmet or the light on the helmet sinking into the water. Like, you couldn't see that in the new movie because it'd been too well lit to even seen that, you know? It's just, I mean, that's how well lit or too overly lit they had most of the scene.
There wasn't a dark corner to hide in the second one for sure.
The one thing that the original, I mean, it's weird thing. The acting is a weird mix in the original movie because you can tell that they're less polished actors in the original movie, but because of that, they seem like it goes back to the natural thing. They seem more realistic.
Yes.
Like, I mean, the only thing that stands out in one scene, and like I said, it's not good in the sequel or in the remake either, is the scene between TJ and Sarah on that kind of like, you know, windswept, like, you know, part of the, you know, like it's not really a beach, it's more like a stony like overlook of the lake or whatever that is nearby. They kind of have more of like a soap opera moment. It's like, you know, but you've been gone, and, you know, like the way that they go back and forth with each other.
Yeah.
But even with that, they both give enough in that scene where like not one like outclasses the other to the point that like it was distracting. But you go forward in time to 2009, and Jensen just beats the shit out of Jamie King in that scene between the two of them. Like, she looks like she is so over but also underacting at the same time. Like, she's not got the emotion in her voice she needs, but then she's way overplaying her facial stuff. And it's like, and then Jensen's like, he's the complete opposite. Like, he's not really showing anything on his face, but the way he's delivering the lines, it's like she's so outclassed. But in the original, even though they're both overacting, like they're at least matching each other in that scene.
I mean, but everything in the film when he's talking to her comes out like fucking butter on a hot tortilla, okay? Like, smoother than that. It's like, you know, she couldn't compare.
As far as the and then the music, I mean, the music's an interesting thing because it's like all like, you know, hillbilly / country western for most of the movie, and it even like the ending, which we'll play at the end of this, like the ballad of Harry Warden, is like this like folksy type song. Like, it fits like just, you know, like these like rough and burly like miners would be listening to this type of music on their off days. Whereas in like the new one, it's too poppy. It's like, you know, because
when they were having a party in the mines, it didn't fit.
Especially with the time period, because it's supposed to be 10 years removed. So 10 years from 2009, it would have been 1999. It was like the music they were listening to was like, it didn't make sense for the setting that they were going for.
Not at all. I don't know. I don't know. I have no dumb way to explain that away.
I don't know. What have you thought about like all this stuff? Like, as far as the movie, like, I mean,
for the 1981 version, I mean, we've discussed visuals, acting, music. Were there the story, because it is slightly different.
Oh, that's a good point. I actually like the origin story for Harry a lot better than the original, because getting trapped underground and having to survive off eating the dead bodies of
Yes.
your former, coworkers is so much darker and so much more believable than what they put in the new movie.
Yeah, it's like they tried to be less gory in the second one. Um, and in the
Well, it's funny you say that, because there's more blood and more
yeah,
splat involved, but the quick little story bit in the new movie is the fact that he killed everybody right after the mine collapsed in order to save enough oxygen so he could survive long enough to be rescued.
yeah. Which okay, I want to go to the first one because I'm forgetting because I keep getting convoluted with the second story, or the remake. But what happened to Harry in the first one after did he got rescued?
He got rescued. They kind of, I mean, and the funny thing about this, and I don't know how, well, I mean, we'll get to it in a second. But anyways, the story in this one, to my knowledge, is he gets rescued. He gets treated for whatever injuries he has. He breaks out of the hospital, just kind of like he does in the new movie.
Yes.
And the only thing he does is he goes and he catches those two supervisors that allowed him and his other coworkers to be trapped under, because they skipped off and they were fucking around at the Valentine's Day dance instead of, watching the, mines like they were supposed to. And he kills them and he cuts out their hearts, and then he stops there, and he gets and of course Axel, it's revealed that he happened to see his father killed. His father was one of the supervisors, but he stops there. They catch him, they institutionalize him, put him in a mental hospital, and he basically stays there until he dies, and then he dies like 5 years before the new movie, or the movie, actually takes place.
Okay, and then of course that explains Axel's story, and I did like that.
I was going to say, how did you feel the Doom Prophet? He even looks at the camera at one scene, like it's like you're in his bar and he's telling the story for the 100th time. Everybody else is like, "Shut the fuck up, Happy."
Yeah.
And like he looks at the camera and he's like, "It was 20 years ago today," and then he goes into the whole story, kind of like it's like a campfire tale,
I mean, we can talk about it, but I feel like that kind of goes into the Death Holler Awards a little bit.
Okay, well, we can leave it for that. It's interesting. It's a very interesting contrast to how they do it in the new movie, where you basically have to glean all that stuff from like a series of like 3D newspaper articles or whatever.
Oh my God, yeah. Excuse me as I'm getting ready to choke. I like how both of these movies had a slightly different variation on the story.
Yeah, it's like Elseworlds or alternate universe versions of the same story or something.
Yes. And I do like how it was told in this particular movie and how the actors portrayed it. So I will say that.
I was surprised. I didn't think that I would. And at first I was kind of, because I just came off watching the remake again, that's the one that I, watched when it came out in theaters, which, by the way, the 3D was amazing in theaters. It was some of the best at the time period. That's around when Avatar came out.
Yeah.
And I watched it and I watched it again and I'm like, okay, it's about what I remember it to be. And then I watched the original and then I was like, for a day there, I was kind of just rolling around in my head. I'm like, I don't know which one. And then the more I thought about it, it's like, I like the original for like a lot of the stuff that it did, because it feels better than what they did. The remake's too overblown in a lot of the way that it did things.
Yeah, it can be.
And then I don't know. It was one of those things that it kind of marinated. It like got better the more I thought about it. Like at first I was kind of let down by it. I'll be perfectly honest. I almost felt like, kind of how you do whenever you watch like some of these more subtle movies and they don't have like the, all the gory deaths and all that stuff. And I was just like, is that what and then I was like, no, there's things I do like about it,
Yeah. That is one thing we do need to discuss right now is the deaths. Because they were pretty fucking effective.
They were, and and like we talked about with Valentine, they were, they had the oomph to them. Like they felt like, there was no holding back, like, especially like right from the get go, like, what you're getting into, because he roughly takes the woman who's undressing in front of him, slams her against the wall, and then, like, the rod or whatever it is comes out her back or
Yes.
whatever. So, or comes through her back.
Right
so,
through the heart.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, it's to it that it's not like you can tell there's the gloves were definitely not off, or were definitely off in this one. They were ready to go, ready to take care of business. And I mean, it's probably the one kill in the movie that exemplifies that is the scene where he takes like Sylvia and like just picks her up and like almost crushing her head, just slams her onto that like shower bar or whatever it is, and like through the back of her head.
Well, what I like the most is that they showed the deaths.
That's true. And the one death, and I mean, this is getting to awards a little bit, that scene with Howard, where he drops down in front of him, and then it's like such a quick snap that his head just pops off, and they're splattered with blood. I looked at my wife and I was like, damn, like that was like, it had, it was very visceral. Like it had a lot to it. Like I felt that, death more than I was expecting to, because a lot of times you just see this, like, you can tell it's a dummy type thing, but there was enough weight to how they had that body drop that it was just okay, they did good with that.
I loved it. I'm not even going to lie about that one. I do have another favorite death. I'll talk about it when the awards come up, but I like that we were able to see the deaths. They were pretty decent looking. There's one in particular I saw in comparison to the 2009 where the pickaxe comes through and brings the eyeball with it. And without much information given away, I'm going to say I liked it better in the 1981 film, although there is a purpose for it in the 2009 film. I'm not going to pretend that purpose does not exist. However, visually, I liked it in the 1981 one. It just worked a little bit better for me. I want to go back to the death scenes and lighting, again, because nothing was drowned out. Visually, you were able to see what you needed to see, but there was enough darkness for stuff to be hidden the way it was supposed to be, or cover up just enough what it needs to cover up. I just think that they did it right in the first one.
I think so too. I think they got a little too, I don't know, like afternoon TV, like soap opera like looks on some of the stuff they came up with, which is funny because like Jensen was, started out as a soap actor.
Yes,
so
100%.
It's kind of funny that they went that route with it, but I agree. The original has almost that grimy feel to it too. That like like a realistic, like we talked about with Chainsaw. It's got a little bit of that going for it, which helps the movie.
Yeah.
Almost like you found somebody had filmed the Axel going through there and killing all these people, and like you were seeing it through like the video, like the camera they found or something.
Yeah. The tough thing about Death Holler Awards is that it kind of, in this particular case specifically, is we can't discuss too much of the film because it really does get a lot into the Death Holler Awards. A lot of the scenes served a purpose according to our list of things that we're looking for. Unless you have anything further you want to discuss that won't give anything away during Death Holler Awards, we've kind of done that a little bit.
I think we can kind of cut it there. I mean, we're kind of both giving the same vibe that we like this film. You know, that's kind of the point of the movie review. And it's one that I can actually see myself going back and rewatching and enjoying it more. Like the more I see it, there's a reason that this is a cult movie. Like it has definitely grown to the point. I mean, it's got its own fan film, like Friday the 13th does. So that tell you something. Like, I mean, there's definitely a demand for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a slash for me for sure. But it still has that older movie vibe that I have such a hard time with. So I
know, and I figured it would. Like that's what I was wanting. I was like, I figured you would appreciate the new one better just because it's got more of the crunch, like the bombastic, like just out there, like way that it went about stuff. But like this one, I was like, there's enough here that she might be okay with it. You know?
But
you got to remember, you got to realize this movie came out in the wake of Friday the 13th, the original, the one with, Mama Voorhees. And right before part 2 came out and introduced us to Jason. Like, this is wedged right between, this came out in February 11th, I think it was, or somewhere there, they're close, of 1981. And then Friday the 13th part 2 came out in May of 1982. So, or 1981, I mean. So
yeah, and I'm gonna have to throw out this word again. It's a sleeper hit because I didn't even know this 1981 version existed. I only knew of the Dean Winchester one. Never seen it, but
I mean, and I was the same way for years. Like, if I hadn't, like, recently, I feel like it's got more of an audience in the last 10 years, maybe, because since the remake came out, which that's one of the things people, like, shit upon remakes for, is they say they go back and they ruin the original. But sometimes they bring enough attention to the series that people go back and they're like, hey, I like this original movie, and give a life to a movie that it would have never had otherwise. So that's sometimes a benefit to having a remake of a movie. And I think it's definitely helping this one out, because I've seen more about it in the last, and since the remake came out, than I ever did before, because I had no idea about it either before the remake.
Yeah, which is so funny. It's funny because I can understand missing the 1981 version. I didn't know much about the 2009, and I also did not know anything about Jensen Ackles back then. I didn't even know anything about Supernatural back then.
Boo.
I know, which is so insane that I became the fan that I became. Even further when we get into a Jensen Ackles discussion or Dean Winchester discussion for the next film. We'll get back to this one. We should probably get into trivia so we could start talking about what we really liked about the film.
All right, trivia. In an interview with TerrorTrap.com, director George Mahalka said that the shooting location at Sydney Mines, Nova Scotia, was chosen because of its rustic atmospheric appearance. However, when the locals found out that a movie was going to be shot there, they decided to spend $50,000 to have the mine painted and cleaned. He actually went on to say that it was so clean you could eat off the floor in it. This, of course, diminished the reason that he chose the place to begin with, and he had to spend $75,000 to get it back to the way that it looked originally.
What? That doesn't make any goddamn sense. They had to spend more to get it.
It's a lot harder to age stuff than it is to clean it up.
I guess so.
Because he had to go back, and they had like scouting shots, so they had to like paint over places that had like spray paint on it, or put the spray paint back. They had to like give an aged look to some of the like the floors and the rocks and everything. The lining of it. It just sucks, because he said that they were so happy and proud of themselves that they'd spent that money to make the mine look better, and it was the exact opposite of the reason he wanted to film there to begin with.
Oh my God. Oh, Reverend, hold on. I got another animal situation.
Okay.
Fucking shit. I just had a real life situation of my pussy's trying to kill me.
Your cat's that crazy?
No, she's not normally, okay? But hold on. Okay, so she's trying to get in. She's really loud, and I'm like, I don't want to pick this up on audio. Whatever. I guess we've done it before. I don't know why I'm having such an animal day today. This is a real life when bad animals go bad. But she's at the door. She's trying to get in. I'm like, let me take her downstairs to my daughter, because that's her second comfort. It did not go well, let me tell you. Anyways, I'm back. I'm alive. And if we were recording this, I'd put my scratches up on the camera for people to see. She tried to murder me. She did not. She knew, too. She knew I was taking her somewhere else. She's like, no, fuck you. Anyways, I'm okay.
Getting back to what we were talking about before, the film was shot in authentic mines, which were often as much as 900 feet underground, and only certain lighting devices could be used in the mines because of the potential danger of methane explosions.
Wait, was this an active mine?
Yeah, well, it was not. No, it was not active, but I mean,
Still.
it was. But they were. See, that's what I think. I think that they filmed like on the very surface level of the mine. If they filmed in it at all and didn't use a soundstage in 2009, and that's the reason it was so overly lit.
Yeah,
they had to light this like they would an actual mine, because if they didn't, they could possibly blow themselves up. So,
oh my God.
According to makeup effects artist Thomas R. Berman, one of his gory creations was realistic enough that director George Mahalka threw up at the side of it.
Ew.
And that's probably something that was cut from the movie because we'll get to that in a minute. The filming location, Sydney Mines, Nova Scotia, is a small Canadian coal mining town. The area was filled with closed pit mines, bootleg mines, and underground mines, which were shutting down due to economic and environmental issues. At the time filming took place, since then, the mine used as Hanniger Mine, called the Princess Colliery Mine in real life, has been dismantled, buried, and turned into a park/museum.
Okay, buried? Okay, dismantled, buried.
Yeah, they probably just put explosives along the lines and just sunk it or whatever.
Which is great. Does the possibility of any of the elements like methane still permeate, or have the potential to?
I wouldn't. I think they would probably get trapped inside of the rock and stuff at that point.
Okay.
Point to where they wouldn't be an issue.
They fucking put a park on top of it.
The folk ballad that plays over the ending credits was added by composer Paul Zaza as an afterthought. The uncredited singer who does the vocal for the ballad was Scottish-Canadian tenor John McDermott, which we will get to the end of this episode for everybody to hear.
Yeah, stay tuned.
One of the makeup designers once shipped a dummy corpse to the set in a coffin, which caused much alarm when it arrived at Canadian Customs.
Oh my God. I can imagine.
Quentin Tarantino has named My Bloody Valentine as his all-time favorite slasher film.
Which one?
I don't recall there being feet in it, but, hey, we all got to have something that's not our kinks. Producers Andre Link and John Dunning said the film's origin came about when they sought to find a holiday which a slasher film had not been set on during the slasher flick boom of the early 80s. They settled on Valentine's Day, and in order to keep the secret from being copied, they made the film's working title The Secret, though they had the release title in mind the entire time.
Good job. Good job picking the holiday.
Yeah, you pick one that's not commonly known. That's a good idea. George Mahalka approached Paramount in 2001 with a synopsis for a sequel, but due to poor box office records with the original film, they declined.
Boo.
Most of the houses seen in the scenery of the film were company houses built by the Cape Breton coal mining companies for miners. As of 2015, several of them are still standing.
Interesting. I want to go back real quick to him approaching Paramount. Probably should have approached Universal.
Yeah, that would have probably made more sense.
Mm-hmm.
They probably would have got. He still talks about, because I think that they filmed. There's like an interview that they had at some kind of showing / convention that was on the Scream Factory disc for this one, and it seemed like it was later than 2001, more recent, maybe like 2015, something like that, 2016, I believe. And he keeps talking about wanting to do a full-on sequel to the movie and getting back a lot of the principal players that were left to come back and reprise their roles.
That'd be kind of cool.
I think it would work. Because it's, the remake's its own thing. We've already discussed that, kind of its own universe, because it flips a lot of stuff. So, going back and doing a sequel to the original would work.
Yeah.
According to the interview by Terror Trap, composer Paul Zaza spoke about wanting to create a different kind of musical motif for each of the individual murders, as well as make the music have a dripping, damp, creepy sound to it, like in the mine setting itself. He also stated that the end credits song, The Ballad of Harry Warden, was written because the movie producers wanted a song that could be a hit single on a vinyl record, but they ran out of funding, and so the Ballad of Harry Warden was written instead. Most of the soundtrack to My Bloody Valentine was never commercially released.
Wow.
And there's a demand out there for it. There's fans that want, the old throwbacks, like records, cassettes, that sort of thing, because
they never lived through the horrible times. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't know any better.
Look about it.
And records are so goddamn expensive. They were expensive then. They're expensive now because of nostalgia. And they're not great.
They're like $40 or $50.
Yeah. It's like, no, I'm sorry. We lived through those times. Glad you're enjoying it. We're going to get on our Pandora or Spotify.
I do collect some horror records. The ones that are, the ones that I would actually listen to, the majority of the songs, like for instance, Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh, yeah.
Waxworks Records put that one out recently. I do collect some of those, but like I don't go out of my way to collect a ton of them. I mean, because I have one record player, and I listen to it once in a blue moon. It's a lot easier to listen to Spotify, YouTube music, whatever it is,
we only have, we have lots of records, but we only have one, trying to think, soundtrack, and it's Guardians of the Galaxy. And
that one's a pretty good one. It's got really good songs too.
Yes, that's a badass soundtrack. So not upset with that one at all.
Which tangent? They used Space Hogs in the meantime, I believe is the name of the band, for the trailer for Guardians 3, and they cut that so perfectly to that trailer that like it gives that Frisian thing that we talked about before. I get goosebumps when I watch that new trailer just because the way that they cut it in there. I mean, even though that song was like from whenever I was in high school, like it just fits perfectly.
That's so funny
with that. The MPAA cut more than 5 minutes out of the film before it came out, mostly because the movie was released shortly after John Lennon died, and there was a major backlash against violent movies.
Wow.
And unfortunately, the auger scene is the one that they cut the most. And that's a big thing. Mahalka came back to him and said, "Is there any way that I can, keep any part of this scene in there?" And they said, "If you don't cut that entire goddamn thing out of the movie, we're not allowing you to release it." So that's why you only see the two actors with the auger drill through them as like a quick cut. You don't see that because he said the way he described it in the that thing that interview I was talking about. He said that they were actually having sex, like in the scene. You could tell they were. Harry, or Axel in this case, appears behind them, stabs into the male. I can't remember his name now, Michael or whatever it is. First, blood starts pouring out of his mouth onto the woman, and like she gets drilled into it, and you see everything. Like he had it all. And the problem is though, when he had to cut it, like they can't even restore it now. Like they wanted to restore it for like the new movie or like the new release from Scream Factory and make like an extended director's cut. And it doesn't exist because when he cut it, like it just completely got like shoved in the garbage basically after that. So
who the fuck is John Lennon to fucking be causing this kind of bullshit? I'm sorry. Have you heard fucking Yoko Ono sing? That's violent and gory.
You know what's weird about this? I always find weird connections when these movies are discussed. So we talked about like Marley talked, or I think that's what her name is. I've already forgot. Anyways, like talks about how she wanted to portray like Mia Farrow from like Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
You remember that link that Rosemary's Baby, like Mia Farrow was walking past John Lennon's killer in front of the building that inspired Rosemary's Baby.
Yes.
And caused the killer, Chapman or whatever, to go and kill Lennon. That was like, so it's weird that like this movie was actually affected, by the death of John Lennon, and then like, just little ties like that, just weird. Like it always happens that way.
We always circle back to the Rosemary's Baby movie and potentially the Brownstone. That was clearly the main star of that movie,
Yeah. According to George, the director, the actors and extras playing minors in the group shower scene were genuinely naked, even though they were filmed from the chest up.
Oh my God. Come on, guys. What the fuck? Is it a fucking wiener fest?
And one of the actors, during that little convention, showing that where they were just talking to him, he mentioned that, and I think I've got it in here somewhere later on, but I'm just going to bring it up now. That scene, the hot water never got hot at all because of the way that was. So it was ice cold.
Oh shit!
And they were using a fan to blow in a mist to make it look like there was steam. Well, that was cold air on top of it.
Oh,
so they were freezing by the time they were done with that scene.
That was such an unnecessary scene, in my opinion. I will say this. All those wet wieners and not a single wiener slap. But now it makes sense because they were so cold. They were probably innies at this point. So
yeah, they were innies at that point.
Yeah.
There was no slapping to be had in that scene. In the ending credits, the song line says, "And those still alive know the secret survives." This is referring to the movie's originally intended title, The Secret. Nowhere in the film does it ever say what kind of mine the fictional Hanniger mine is. However, the general assumption from viewers is that it's coal mine, and it was filmed in a coal mine setting, as you know, and because it was filmed there.
Yeah.
So the caption near the beginning states Thursday, February 12th, indicating that the dance will be on Saturday the 14th, and that means that Friday the 13th falls in between. And you know that's and it was released between part 1 and part 2, so it was kind of an inside joke there.
I fucking love that. I love little bits like that.
Rob Stein, who played John, that was the part about the shower. They were so frigid or whatever that I was talking about. So
not a wiener to be seen in sight.
No flopping, no anteaters in this scene. So the soundtrack to My Bloody Valentine was mostly by Paul Zaza and Canadian country singer Marie Bottrell. Although Paul Zaza has claimed to have all the original soundtrack with him, including the folk songs and the Ballad of Harry Warden by John McDermott, he has never released it for sale, despite a number of fans requesting that he do so. There's a large enough, he claimed that there's not enough of an interest to even make it worth putting out on vinyl, CD, or MP3s. But Marie Bottrell did release her recorded songs from the film on her album The Star, and the Ballad of Harry Warden is available on a number of video sites copied from the ending credits of the film's DVD release.
Wow.
The cast arrived a week or two before shooting to get a feel of the town and its lifestyle before filming. That gave them a chance to bond as friends, and also found out fast it wasn't uncommon for locals to wind up bloody knuckles after a heavy night of drinking. That's probably why this movie feels like we talked about, like, the actors went there, they spent time with the locals, and they added that to their cast, and that it pays off. Like, it really does feel that way.
The camaraderie too that they built in those 2 weeks, like, hey, we're going to be on a film, this is exciting, and getting to know each other, and I don't know, getting to know probably the characters a little bit. Oh, I'm playing this person and you're supposed to be my enemy ultimately, or blah blah blah. It works. Yeah,
it worked, and they did a good job of conveying that on the screen.
I wonder if that was the director that had them do that, or if they chose to do that.
They didn't specify, the director did, although I'm sure he probably suggested that they do that, and they followed suit, because I don't feel like they were all like super established actors and actresses. So like they would have, been more willing to like go along with, what his directions were in that sense.
Yeah. Interesting.
The pop rock band My Bloody Valentine takes their name from the film.
Oh my God.
Obviously. If you look closely, when the cast drives by Valentine's Bluff sign toward the beginning of the movie, TJ's green Camaro appears to be being flat-towed behind the pickup truck he is supposed to be racing.
Way to go, loser.
Star Neil Affleck said that the identity of the film's killer was kept a secret even from the cast, because the filmmakers liked the idea of the mystery being real among the actors. However, Affleck figured out he was the killer when, after being cast, he was sent to the makeup effects department to be fitted for a fake arm that would be ripped off the killer in the film's finale.
Oh.
But that is a smart idea if you don't want the killer to be like, if you want people to be honestly like surprised. I mean, that's good to kind of hide it from everyone.
I wonder if he actually, once he figured it out, because I don't know at what point he did figure it out, but I wonder if when he did, he was like, hey guys, guess what? I know something. I'm the killer,
You know what? He might have took it the other way too, though. He could have been like, I know a secret they don't, and like that added to the character like a little bit, like his portrayal of it. It's like, they don't know that I am, wolf in sheep's clothing. I'm amongst all the ones that, are being killed. Actor Carl Moreau said that while in the death scene makeup, no one would eat lunch near him.
Why?
I guess because his effects were so gruesome or something.
Oh my God.
Neil Affleck revealed that he was still in the miners, that he still has the miner's helmet that he wore in the film.
I mean, they were pretty cool.
Yeah. It's kind of cool whenever they take little pieces from the movies that they were in and kind of have them later. As the director has stated many times, roughly 9 minutes of footage had been cut from My Bloody Valentine to secure an R rating instead of an X rating by the MPAA. In result, most, if not all, of the gory scenes have been cut by the MPAA because of backlash against Friday the 13th and John Lennon's murder, as we mentioned. In 2009, a special edition of the film was released with most of the gory footage put back in. And the only footage missing is the on-screen impalement of Michael and Harriet. And when John discovers Sylvia's corpse, there was originally supposed to be a shot of the water coming through Sylvia's blood and turning blood red, which would have deteriorated over the years. A still of the Sylvia scene can be seen online with a very fake-looking dummy. Despite 6 minutes of footage, that remains missing, George Mihalka says that those 6 minutes were only expository footage, like character development, other nonviolent scenes, and not gory footage. And he says that the 93-minute version is 80 to 85% of the way that it's meant to be seen. And that's what we watched with the uncut version. We watched it, and before the disc, he gets on there with a quick scene and says that's pretty much the movie he would have wanted the audience to see if he'd been given the chance. Originally, the death of Mike and Harriet was supposed to be shown on screen, like I said. The MPAA rejected the film outright and it had to be completely cut from the scene or from the film. Unlike the other murder sequences, which were edited down, this scene has yet to be restored. And like I said, I don't think it can be because they don't have the footage any longer.
Yeah.
So it kind of sucks.
Boo.
Death Holler Awards. What do you think of the final girl in this movie, Sarah Palmer?
I mean, effective.
She feels real.
Yeah.
Like we talked about, with the actress in Chainsaw. Like she feels more like a real person in that situation than like some of the actresses after her did.
Yeah. And just helpful when she needs to be, strong when she needs to be, just enough weakness to make her, well, like you said, real. It kind of all attributes to that. So I like her.
She stands up to both of the guys in that scene where they're fighting over her. I mean, she tells them, she's like, fuck off. Like, she's like, you both of you all, I'm not just some, prize or whatever be won, like, and she stands up for herself. So, I mean, and that's a pretty big thing for, as old as this movie is. I mean, I know Jennifer Lawrence was the first, female empowerment figure in any movie whatsoever, but Sarah's, not too far behind, as far as like, standing up for herself.
Well, we know where she drew her inspiration from.
Yeah, clearly Sarah was based upon Jennifer Lawrence. That's all we can say. I mean, what about the miner / Axel in the movie, which is, it's it's a stunt guy the entire time. But anyway, it's like, I feel like it's a good look for a killer. Like that miner's mask looks creepy. I love it. Like,
love it.
In fact, they stole that look, that kind of gas mask look later on in Doctor Who. There's one of the creepiest episodes in David Tennant's run is there's this little kid that keeps popping up. And you can tell there's something wrong with him, and you can't really see what it is because his face is covered up with a gas mask. It's supposed to have occurred right after, like, the bombing in England during World War II or something like that. And he keeps saying, "Where's my mummy?" or whatever, like he's asking for his mom. And he's the soulless black eyes of the gas mask, and it works for this just the same as this character did for this movie.
I think it's just, oh God, like we're into it right now because one of my favorite scenes in both of the films is when these costumes or these uniforms are just falling from chains onto the victim below. I don't know how or why they're even up there like that. I don't know what the purpose of that is. All I know is that I love it. It works. And it's just scary enough to have the real thing pop up right in front of you and really fucking get you with the jump scare.
Somebody in one of the two movies explains that, and I can't remember which one it is now, but they basically do that, and the thing drops down, and somebody asks them why it's like that, and they explain to them that it's because they need easy access to the equipment in the case that something, happens in the mine or something like that. So it is explained in one of the two movies why because it's like a little drop-down line, and they have to hit like a thing, and it, snaps it down or whatever so that they can get easy access.
I suppose.
But yeah, it's a good look, and it's creepy or whatever. It's like, you could almost turn this movie, if you wanted to make him, Harry, go the supernatural route and be like a ghost like figure that's tied to the suit, you could totally do that because there doesn't have to be anything under that mask. Yeah.
Also, I wanted to say it was an extra surprise for me. Now, the storyline of having the killer be Axel totally, absolutely works. And they give a really good, pretty decent reason why that would draw someone to that kind of, lifestyle, if you will. But I had seen the newer one first. So you can imagine my surprise when it wasn't who I probably thought it was going to be.
Yeah, you thought it was going to be TJ. I mean, I was kind of the same way. Whenever I watched it, I'm like, what the fuck? It's Axel in this movie?
Yes. So that was a nice little twist.
Because at that point in the movie, Axel had actually been the more proactive one of the two and had actually been trying to lead them to safety.
Yes. Yes.
And so it's kind of it's a neat twist. It actually works. It throws you off your guard whenever it happens.
I like it.
Best kill in the movie for you?
Mine's going to be Sylvia.
Okay, that's a good one.
I loved the shower one. I mean, not shower, but the sprinkler. And I did see blood coming out of her mouth at one point in mixed with it.
There is blood that is in the scene. I think there was more of it, and maybe like it was blending with the water more in the like the extra.
That's what I'm thinking. Was it a little bit more? Because I know it did kind of go away fast, but I mean, But
I watched the uncut version, so I might have actually seen more of that, than what they originally showed, because I didn't watch the theatrical, and I'm assuming the theatrical, you literally just saw her get basically hooked, and that was it.
Yeah.
Where is this one? There's more blood that comes out.
And it was also led up to by my favorite intense scene of all these uniforms dropping on her and fucking with her. I loved it. Plus, I think they had a dead body in that one as well, on top of the real killer. Said that the costumes, I think they had a costumes, dead body, real killer, and then she has a fucking gruesome and awesome death. So it was just a bunch of buildup that led to one satisfactory,
And it was a good lead up, like you said, because it starts out and she's by herself. She just, had sex with whoever it was that was with Sid at the time. I don't really remember now, but like he's disappeared, she's like looking for him, and then all of a sudden she starts hearing things, and then it just builds up to it. Like it's more of like a haunted house type thing, than just like a straight up slasher at that point.
Which, by the way, I know this is not a Universal film, but oh my God, this would be a sick haunted house.
Oh, me and my wife both mentioned it. Which I think the remake actually was at HHN, but they need to go back and do the original. And there's a few select scenes. That scene with her could easily be done. The scene with, which was my favorite kill, Howard, where it just drops, and then because they do little spray effects, little water droplets or whatever.
Yeah.
Having that and like it's like the spray of his blood, quote unquote, like as you're walking through, that would be awesome.
Oh man, I would love it.
And I would give it to the Mike Harriet Auger, because that clearly would have been a great kill, but you don't see it is the problem. And that's the MPAA. Fuck them. They're it's like George said, and it's always a weird one. You can't show somebody getting killed all day long and it seems fine, but then they show a little bit of sex, because that's the reason they cut it more than it was the according to his description, more so than the death of the two people, the fact that they were legit going at it in the scene, or at least simulating it. They cut it for the sex portion, and he's like, it doesn't make any sense. The sex, which is natural, they don't want to have anything to do in a movie, but then you put in a bunch of killings and they're like, yeah, whatever, fine, show it to kids. It's like weird. It's but yeah, and they joke continuously that Mike was supposed to be hung like a horse, like that was their inside joke, and they kept saying it too, because he never had sex with anybody, and in that scene they were really selling it that Harriet was getting the business, she was getting her, it was her first time, and once she went with Mike, she wasn't going back, in other words.
She wasn't going to come back from that. Definitely a meat slap would have been heard in that one.
Yeah, for sure. Best scream has to be Sylvia. That scene you were talking about.
Yeah.
It's a blood, when she actually sees the miner, it's blood curdling, like the scream
100% Sylvia. And it stood out. I was like, oh, look at that. A scream that I can remember.
Yeah, and it's funny because you watch the final girl, and like she kind of does what we talked about in Valentine with Kate. It's more like she's like gasping and kind of like just a little bit of a like type thing, where Sylvia was like going for it, she was really screaming.
There was a scream, and it wasn't best scream by any means. I think it was Patty had the most annoying. I don't know.
Yeah, it would have been Patty. Patty was Patty was the friend that you knew was going to die.
Yes.
Like just that was the friend of the final girl that just wasn't just right at the last second wasn't going to make it. And
Yeah.
that's what that was the role she played.
That's exactly what happened.
Best boobs, not applicable, folks. They didn't have any real. There was a lot of implied, but
Yes.
there wasn't any shown.
There was bra boobies. That was about it. They weren't bad though.
The chick that was in the miner's outfit at the beginning of it, she looked pretty. I mean, it looked like she was stacked. It's just it never went anywhere. I mean, because the killer killed her too quick.
Yeah.
But,
Which is a shame.
I
He
don't
didn't.
think-
He didn't even get his. Like, what the hell, dude? She was ready and willing.
yeah, I think that. Yeah, I'm sure that was part of the MPAA cut.
Yeah, could have been. Yeah,
like, that's the reason there wasn't more of that in there. How annoying is Doom Prophet? This Doom Prophet is a different one. Like this guy straight up gives you the backstory. Like, I mean, there's Crazy Ralph, and then there's this guy. Like, I mean, it's Happy straight up looks at the camera and tells you the backstory to the killer.
Oh, he was extra. How many fucking times was he gonna open that goddamn door?
And then him going around, it's like, you shut your fucking mouth, kids. You don't know. He's going to kill us all. You know, it's like, all right, well, he killed you. So.
Yeah. You weren't wrong about yourself.
Well, that's the funny thing about a Doom Prophet. They always speak doom to to its truth or whatever and bring it to life, but it always hits them more than or just as much as it hits the audience.
Yeah.
Or I mean the people who are getting killed in the movie.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Best side character, Hollis.
Yeah.
Like, he stood out. Like, of all the miners in the movie, Hollis was the main one. Like, whenever he gets when he gets like those 2 bolts to the head or whatever from the nail gun, it's like I actually cared, that he died.
Oh my God. I could feel like a headache. I was like, that's gotta be the worst fucking headache. His vision's all blurred.
And he didn't die immediately. He was one of those gruesome, like, I'm going to stumble around and then finally die.
It was the worst.
Oh man. Yeah. We're gonna pour one out for you, Hollis. Sadly, this is awful. That actor in real life died of brain cancer.
Oh shit.
That's a weird link. That is a weird link.
Holy shit.
Because they mentioned like he died shortly before they filmed that that get together they had.
Yeah.
Because they wanted him there because like everybody loves Hollis and but he couldn't be there because he died at 57.
Damn.
Very young, very young.
Yeah.
Dumbest moment to me, it's when Sarah and Patty, they're almost out of the fucking tunnel and they turn around to go back and check on
save
TJ.
him. No, you don't. You need to save yourselves.
He even told him, he's like, get the fuck out of here. I'll meet up with you. And they're like, no, we got to go back. And then that's when Patty, gets the pickaxe to the gut. And I'm just like, well, yep, dumb move.
Yeah, well, she needed that. She was annoying.
Oh, anything else you want to discuss about this one before we move on to the Dean Winchester Power Hour, as we're going to call it?
Power Hour. Just that Patty deserves her own. What's the award? Why can't I think of it right now?
The Franklin Award.
Franklin Award. I give that to her.
I'm not going to fight you on that
she
because
was
like she
off.
was the annoying best friend of the final girl.
When I think it was Axel that was like, Sarah, help her out when they were going up the stairs. I wanted to be like, I'm going to help her. I'm going to climb over her and kick her in the face so she falls to the ground. That's what's going to help her. It'll be a less gruesome death. I'll tell you that much.
Which goes back to show it's a very interesting movie because it's another scene where Axel is actively trying to help them. It's
100%.
Like, oh.
And Patty does, or not Patty, Sarah does her job. She's like, yeah, I'm going to help you. And they do. They help her. But, I mean, she's got to help herself,
Yeah, and there's that. I mean, but again, it's a realistic movie because there's that scene where TJ's like came back to check on Axel, sees the helmet floating down, and like they're grabbing him. They're like, we got to go, like we can't linger here, and like and then it's like they're working together to get out of there. I mean, like I feel like in the new movie, it's like everybody's at each other's throats.
Yes.
But let's go into it. My Bloody Valentine 3D, the 2009 remake. Tagline: he's going to break your heart.
Gonna do more than break your heart.
Directed by Patrick Lussier, however you want to say that.
Yeah.
Lussier. Written by Todd Farmer, who did the screenplay, and Zane Smith, who did the screenplay, and then John Beard. It was based on John Beard's original film. Music by Michael Wandmacher. Wandmacher. Anyways, budget of $15 million.
Holy shit.
This made $100.7 million. I don't know why this didn't have sequels. This fucking blew the this movie made money hand over fist.
Holy crap. Did we know the main reason for it? Was it because it was 3D? Did it come out at the right time? Was it Dean Winchester?
It was all of that stuff. Because I remember when this came out, like, we were dying for a good slasher. And me and my wife both went and watched this. We both loved it. I still like it. I mean, we've kind of discussed some things that we find fault with. It's still a fun movie to watch. But, I mean, at the time that it came out, Avatar had pretty much came out around this time. And the 3D was real big. It just came back, and we went through that whole period. But this was one of those movies that did 3D right. Like when you were in the theater, like those pickaxe hand or like edges were coming like right at your face. Like, I mean, it was good.
I could see it, but obviously I didn't have 3D, so.
Oh, it looks like shit now. Like if you go back and I tried it with the 3D goggles, because the one that I have actually has the little glasses in there, and it's it's the old style. It's the red and green or whatever it is to make the image. But the only part I watched was I tried to watch the beginning of it, but it was so distracting I couldn't stay with it because like the colors on an HD TV screen, they almost like go back and forth to where it's like you're almost watching like a strobe light or something.
Yeah.
And like I couldn't deal with it. I was like, fuck, I'm just gonna watch the 2D version. But in movie theaters, it was those other type, the ones that were, that were regular glasses. The screen was slightly blurry, but then whenever you put those on, they made the two images like sync up to where they it was perfect. Like it worked. This is one that if they were to put out like on a, semi-annual type thing where you could go to the movie theater, get a bucket of popcorn and watch it in 3D, this would be one of those ones to watch. Like it would work.
Interesting.
But yeah, other than the fact that people were starved for a good horror movie at this time, because I mean, you got to remember, we talked about Valentine. That was 2001. People were getting tired of the post-Scream slashers. This was an old school type slasher, and people were dying for a good one because it'd been years since we had one. And this is the same year that we got not only this, but we got Jared Padalecki's 2009 Friday the 13th remake. They came out in the same year.
Wow, I didn't even realize that.
So it was a big year for slashers to come back, and people were just pouring in the theater to see them.
Okay.
Principal players, we got Jamie King playing Sarah Palmer, who's our final girl. She was in Sin City, and we already talked about Marley Shelton, who was also in Sin City. So there's a link there between it and Valentine.
Yeah.
She was in The Spirit. She was in White Girls, that's a movie that can't be made now.
Oh man.
Silent Night. She actually did the remake to Silent Night, Deadly Night that came out in 2012. We have Chris Carnell, who plays the miner in this. He's the slasher of the film.
Oh, okay.
He's been a stuntman in tons of stuff. Bye Bye Man, The Walking Dead, Westworld, Iron Man, Guardians of the Galaxy. We talked about that already.
Yeah.
Hatchet. He's been in a ton of stuff.
That is a damn shame that Dean Winchester could not do that. Or
and
did
it's
not.
funny too. It's funny too because we've seen him playing evil and supernatural, and he does it very, very well. Like he would have played this character to a T if they would have had him in that suit.
Yeah, I don't know what the meaning of that was, but okay, go off.
Jensen Ackles as Tom Hanniger, the largest stakeholder in the local mine, and of course he's Dean Winchester. I mean, for fuck's sake, that's who he is.
You mean Dean Winchester as Jensen Ackles portraying Tom Hanniger?
Yes. All those things all wrapped up into one with a little bit of Batman voice thrown in on occasion.
He even had a Batman scene where he was kind of peering over the town in a crouch.
In the crouch, you're right, 100%. And at the end of the movie, where Tom supposedly takes over his body, he's got that voice. He's like, "I'm right here." It's like it's Batman. Fuck yes.
Oh, God.
We talked about fan casting Mia Goth as Harley Quinn. James Gunn Jensen Ackles needs to be your Batman going forward. It just needs to happen.
Are we gonna talk about Dean Winchester now, or are we gonna talk about it later? I think we're here as a character.
All throughout the thing. This is Dean Winchester Power Hour. This is what we're going to talk about.
It is.
Of course, Supernatural. That's what we keep referring to. If you haven't watched that, the first 5 seasons especially, go watch that, as soon as you're done with the podcast. He was in Smallville. Kind of a creepy role in Smallville. It wasn't intended to be, but it really was.
It was.
Because he plays like the coach of the football team, but then he's also dating Lana Lane, who's supposed to be a high schooler.
Yeah. He talks about how weird it is now.
Yeah. I mean, and he's discussed it inside of you. There's another reference to that podcast. Very good discussion though about all that stuff. But they were all the same age, so it wasn't creepy in a real life sense.
Yeah.
But the show, it was really creepy. He's in The Boys, obviously, a soldier boy. Perfect villain in that show, and they can bring him back because he didn't officially get killed in the show. I don't think he can be killed the way they hinted at, but anyways, Batman: The Long Halloween. Speaking of Batman, he did get the voice Batman, at least in the animated TV show. He was the voice of the Red Hood in Batman Under the Red Hood in that animated movie. And he was in Dawson's Creek, which I bring that up because there's another actor in this movie, Kara Smith, who played Axel Palmer, who was also in Dawson's Creek.
Wasn't he in some kind of soap opera too?
Oh, yeah. That's when he first started out. I think it was like The Days of Our Lives or one of those. It was.
Looking right now. But, of course, they want to just talk about Supernatural, Smallville, Bloody Valentine. God, they really... Days of Our Lives, you're right.
Yep. I thought that's what it was because he was real young whenever he was casting that. I mean, and he didn't have the Dean voice at that time. He has perfected the Dean voice since then. Is there what do you want to bring up about Jensen right now before we move on to anybody else in the movie?
It might not be a surprise. I do not like Jensen Ackles at all. I do not like him. I don't like him.
You don't?
I don't. And I have not since Supernatural. I never really had empathy for Dean Winchester too much. Obviously Dean Winchester is who he is in the show, and I get how some people could just feel that way about Dean Winchester. I get this vibe from Jensen Ackles, and I've said this before on this show.
Oh, you're talking about Jensen himself, not the character
Jensen.
Dean.
Yeah, not Dean.
I was say because you love Dean. What are you talking about?
I don't love Dean because I don't love Jensen. I don't. I do not. I don't like anything that Jensen does because something about him. This is just me, and I don't know why I feel this way, honestly. But I get vibes from certain people, and I've been right a lot of the times in my just my assumptions of somebody right off the bat. If I get this bad vibe, I've usually been right. I do not think he's a good person at all. I think he's an actor, and he's very great at it. I think he gives off the vibe that he's a nice person and he means well. At the end of the day, he's somebody that's making money, and that's great. I'm never going to fault him for that, but I really think he's a bad person. I don't know why. I really think he is a villainous person.
I can't argue with that because obviously you never know a person or whatever, and people give that or try to attribute that same shit to Jared, and I don't get the vibe from Jared that he's a bad person necessarily. Jared's a damaged person.
Oh, he is very much.
Down.
Yes,
and he has acted out in really bad ways in real life, but it all comes from a super depressed / broken personality. Jensen is a different person, and I get what you're coming from. There's some things that's happened, like he can put on the charm like no other. So that's the reason, it's hard to see past that. And even as I got to say, even as a guy, he seems like the kind of guy I'd want to hang out with just because he puts on that charm so much.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's that undercurrent where the whole deal, and this is only Supernatural fans will get this, and this is why we say the Dean Winchester Power Hour. This is going to be a lot of discussion about stuff. There was a big blow up between Jensen and Jared. They were supposed to be best friends, almost like brothers in the sense of how close they were while they were filming Supernatural. But when Jensen got the rights to do the prequel series, The Winchesters, there's a big blowout because Jared was not informed one way, shape, or the other. Not that he should have been. That's a whole debate.
It is.
But Jensen never, as close a friend he was, never once called him up and to even attempt to say, "Hey, I got this. There might be a job for you," or anything like that. He just went along. He announced it, and there's this whole thing where they said that he kind of had to, and I don't know that behind, what happened about all that stuff behind the scenes, but there's a vibe there that he was like, he can be cutthroat when it comes to like business stuff.
I can 100% see that, and that's fine with me. Here's where my perspective.
And he probably needs to be, honestly, if he's going to be a producer, which is what he wants to do, he probably has to be cutthroat. I mean,
that's fine. I actually would have a different perspective of Jensen Ackles if he was a little bit more honest about it and he's always acting, in my opinion, and that's scary. Because when are you a real person? He doesn't come off to me as a real person with any kind of faults. He's always trying to be this perfect example. Again, I think he's always acting, which is kind of a good thing in career-wise because, like I said, I'm not going to take away the fact that he's a good actor or anything like that. But I feel like he's constantly acting. If he had just been like, look, this is something that I kept close to the heart. I knew that if I had gotten it out there, it probably hurt some feelings, and that's not what I wanted to do. But at the same time, I didn't want anybody to know about this because this is my project, and I'm gonna run this bitch, Which is also another thing that recently on Supernatural: The Crossroads, which is another podcast you and I listened to, is that Mike and Thomas both recently had this discussion about Jensen, about him as a person, and Mike's like, he's not genuine like we thought he was. He's just out for the money, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We've supported people that do that, And
there's a thing about it too. If he's always acting and he's always acting as a good guy, then then that. In a roundabout way, he is a good guy. But I understand what you're saying is that if your intent is not to be good, you're just putting on a show, then there's something dark and twisted about that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not genuine. It's not, and I get where you're coming from with that, because even if he does good things, even if he's, like everybody who's in a cast with him says he's very outgoing, very charismatic and all that, but if it's all show and like the person he is underneath is like this cutthroat, business minded, like I'm going to get whatever or do whatever it takes to get ahead, that it's almost like the clown effect, where you're seeing a smiling face and underneath it is somebody who could be like a John Wayne Gacy type or
100%. Yeah.
Not to say the killer or anything, but like the face is not the person. And there's something scary about that, to a certain extent.
It has affected, no, I wouldn't say it affected me in this movie. I'll give my honest opinions about this movie. I'm going to be honest and say that Jensen Ackles as an actor did not upset me so much that I couldn't enjoy this movie to an extent. There's just certain things about him. I can't really be happy for things that I hear coming up. I don't find him to be a genuine person. Again, bring it back to Dave Bautista, where I'm like, I don't fucking know these guys. I could be ass backwards, and Dave Bautista could be a total asshole, and Jensen Ackles could be a legit sweetheart, and here I am making my own assumptions of who they are as people. That's all I can do.
Well, it's hard not to. I mean, there's certain actors that and actresses that I see in movies and I instantly like check out just because like I feel like that person's a scumbag or something like that. So it's easy to get in that frame of mind, and I could see where you're coming from that. I don't have that opinion of Jensen. I could see it.
Yeah.
But to me, he just, the charm works on me. Like when I see
you are
him,
a fangirl.
I like Jared's portrayal better in Supernatural because I like the darkness that Jared brings to the character, which is from a real place.
Yeah.
But in real life, I think Jared would be miserable to hang out with, and Jensen or Jared would be. If Jensen is not putting on a show, which he very well could be, then he's the kind of guy that's like, let's have a beer together. Let's kind of just, cut back, that sort of thing.
I feel like if I had a beer with Jensen, he would just be doing it out of charity. But if I had a beer with Jared, it would be because he genuinely wanted to share a beer with me. And
that's true. Because Jared he's no nonsense. If he doesn't, he tells people that, and I'm probably closer to him in that sense, that if I don't like you, I can't put on a persona and make myself be that way.
Yeah, in that aspect, I do like Jared a little bit more. I don't have any foul opinions about Jared. I also don't think he's the best like amazing, most wonderful person or anything like that. But anyways, we'll get off of this topic. We'll move on to the movie. But yeah, I don't know what my fucking problem is, but just looking at him, I get this bad aura from him. I don't know what it is.
Well, I mean, I can't, like I said, I can't fault that because they're, gut instincts do work. I've had it several times in like just my work career. Like I've had people like come onto the job, like, I get this gut vibe. It's like, it's not going to work out with this person from one way or the other. Have everybody around me tell me, you got to give them a chance, man.
Yeah.
They're too new. And I'm like, yeah, I know they're green, but there's a difference. And I said this at work the other day to some other techs. I'm like, there's a difference when you see somebody first come on the job and they're green and they're making mistakes that, new people do, but you can tell there's a drive there. There's something about them that they're gonna progress. You can tell that there's already progression going on and they're getting better versus the people who come on and it's either the attitude or it's the way they go about, like you tell them something and it's like they're, like this, kind of like a, it goes in one ear out the other. Like there's no retention of anything you're saying, no attempt to retain anything. And it's like, I look at people and I'm like, why did you not get, and they always, it ends up being, working out badly for these ones that I've pegged that way. And like, and then like I look around these other people and I'm like, do you not have a gut instinct? Can you not read these people like I can? Why do you, are you that hopeful and naive that you just assume everybody's going to work out? Because they don't. Like
blissfully
it's
oblivious.
Oh, anyways, Kara Smith, Axel Palmer, plays the sheriff in this. He's an adulterer. He's jealous of Jensen. I didn't say. I'm saying he's jealous of Jensen in real life because that's the vibe I got in this movie.
You think? That'd be some fucking workplace drama right there.
Yeah, I mean, you're not acting at that point. Kara Smith was in the original Final Destination.
Yes.
Which, is that a slasher? I guess it kind of is.
Final Destination? Well, it's also it's like we almost have to have like a supernatural season. We have so many fucking seasons, and I don't mean supernatural show, but anyways. Final Destination is death, and it's supernatural.
Yeah. Anyways, he was also in Dawson's Creek with Jensen, and he was in Riverdale, which I threw on there just because, they're both CW shows, it and Supernatural. So it's kind of a, they're kind of like chasing after each other. And I feel like, that's another reason why in real life I could see him being actually jealous of Jensen, because I feel like Jensen's got more of a, more of a body of work behind him, or more recognizable than Kara Smith is, even though they kind of work together coming up,
Yeah. Was Kara Smith, hold on, I'm sorry, I'm pulling away from the microphone. He was on Dawson's Creek. I guess they've been on Dawson's Creek together. So there's that. So they've been a few times. I'm just trying to find any drama on them. By the way, I am not finding any drama on these two.
They probably not, because both of them are probably like, everybody in Hollywood. It's like those catty, like I hate to, say it's just women, but like, because guys do this to a certain extent too. But it's like, oh, that fucking bitch, like I hate that person. And as soon as you see them, it's like, hey, bestie, how you doing? Like that sort of thing. Hollywood's full of that type, and I can imagine even if they don't like each other, like they, just like you said, they put on a face, and it's like, I love everybody. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
Betsy Rue plays Irene, who's totally not a whore, by the way.
Oh, yeah, not at all. Well, she's technically not, but she's just doing hoe things,
Yeah, she's getting her freak on. That doesn't make her a whore, even if some guy, who is the actual screenwriter, by the way, in that scene with her. Oh. That's a whole thing in the trivia.
Wow.
That I'll get to. But yeah, he just imagine being the screenwriter for a movie. Even though he doesn't look like a typical screenwriter, he did look like a big ass trucker dude.
Yeah.
So I can kind of get, that. But just imagine like writing to script. I, am in scene, rolling around naked, with one of the, major, actresses in the movie. And like, that seems kind of creepy a little bit,
Ass naked.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yes.
It's full nudity. We just don't get to see any meat slaps. So.
Yeah, full on. She was in Eastwick, which is kind of like a television version of The Witches of Eastwick. True Blood. She was in Halloween 2 in 2009, the same year this came out. And she was in Bones with David Boreanaz.
Look
so
at that.
There's another link.
She's got quite some chops.
Tom Atkins, who plays Burke in this, he waited too long to retire. He's the former sheriff, and he totally fucked Michael Myers' sister.
Oh my God, shut up.
He's going to be up again next season in Night of the Creeps and later this year in Halloween 3. So Tom Atkins is making his, he's going to be in all kinds of stuff this year. So.
Oh my God.
Michael McKee plays Jason. Liam Rhodes plays Michael, and Jason and Michael, just, there's the reason they're named that at the beginning of this movie. Brandy Engel plays Brandy. That's another thing about this movie. There's no real thought put behind the names. It's like, what's your name? Is a real life person? Brandy. Okay, you're Brandy.
Well, no. Don't discredit. Right now, you're just flat out being disrespectful because it's Brandy with an I that's playing Brandy with a Y. So
true. There's a little bit of creativity there. I'm sorry. Todd Farmer is the screenwriter that played Frank the Trucker. Celine Luna plays Celine, the dwarf lady who owns the motel. Jeff Hawkendonner plays Red. That's a different name. I mean, they didn't just call him Jeff, at least. Kevin Teague plays Ben Foley. Megan Boone plays Megan.
Okay.
She was the main actress on Blacklist, though, so she did go on to be have her own thing and kind of break out from this.
Yeah.
But of course, Megan's the adulteress in the movie. If anybody didn't know, she's the one with the baby that's on the way.
Pure
bundle of joy.
And the way she fucking told him was very young, psycho, like early 20s psycho girl shit. Like, guess what? I'm pregnant. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, but it also had that air of being naive to it too.
So
because,
naive.
Like, she looks at him and it's like such a dirtbag thing. She hands him a Valentine. He's like, I didn't get you anything. And it's like, well, she's a fucking side piece. She should at least be getting, dinner at Denny's or something somewhere.
He gave her a good hot dick down. What are you talking about?
Well, whatever. And then she and then she turns around. She's like, it's okay. You gave me something else. I'm having your baby. And it's like, oh, fuck.
Psycho shit.
That look, I will give Kara Smith one thing. That look he gives, that look of disgust.
Yes.
/ what the fuck am I going to do? That looked like a man who had been in that situation before. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And then we have Joy De La Paz, who plays Rosa. And then Richard John Walters, who plays Harry Warden for a short little stint at the beginning of the movie. Synopsis: a year after a tragic mine explosion left 5 miners dead, the lone survivor wakes up from a coma and goes on a killing spree, because that's what you do when you wake up from a coma. About Jensen Ackles for 10 years straight. No, actually, it had just been a year at that point, I guess. So anyways, but a year of dreaming about Jensen. So there you go. 12 victims are left dead, and Dean Winchester gets a severe case of PTSD. Fast forward 10 years, and Dean has returned to sell Jeffrey Dean Morgan's mine, which pisses everybody off. Dean's bestie is now the sheriff and thinks his wife will fuck Dean, which is not a bad assumption, but he's got a side piece and shouldn't care.
Yeah.
Irene is totally not a whore. Tom Atkins is getting too old for this shit, and blood and gore are placed front and center for that glorious 3D. Nothing says date movie like a 3D ride to hell, which is another tagline for this movie.
Fucking shit.
But there's nothing I said there that's wrong. I mean, he is selling Jeffrey Dean Morgan's mine. I mean, that's what he's doing. So, body count 29. 29 fucking people die in this movie. Now, not all on screen.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of a cheat there, but I believe that has to be one of the highest body counts we've yet covered.
Well, okay, this one, and then was the last one like the second highest? We got to keep count of the body count.
I'm going to have to go back. I feel like Friday the 13th part 6 might have had a slightly higher one than the original My Bloody Valentine, but it's close. It's close. 5 miners killed by Harry Warden with a pickaxe because that's the thing about the movie as they're telling the story in the 3D, splash screens, which is way too quick, to really read them, especially with 3D goggles, but whatever.
Yeah.
But the story is that he killed them so he could preserve the oxygen so he could survive.
Legit. That's a legit reason.
It is, but I feel like the cannibal angle is way better.
Yeah.
But anyways. 9 hospital massacre victims, their hearts ripped out or otherwise killed by Harry Warden. Very gruesome, very effective scene. I like that.
Ooh, the hand that was just laying there dripping blood. They knew what they were doing with that hand. I was like, she's a fucking hand model, like on Zoolander.
Yeah.
It was a gorgeous, perfect manicure, not overly done. Hand was pretty. It was posed perfectly. Yeah, I loved it.
I have such a disconnect though with these movies showing hospital scenes because I don't know when nurses stopped wearing like white, like hospital gowns or, like those dresses and stuff they had, but it's been for a long damn time. And I know in 2009 they were wearing like,
scrubs.
Barney scrubs and stuff like that. I mean,
Barney scrubs.
It's a thing. Like it's, I wear scrubs to work every day. Like it's, I don't know why that's what I know. It's visually a staple. I mean, I'm sure that I talk about that, like it's one of those staples that like the audience can immediately identify with. But I feel like to me, it's actually serving the opposite purpose at this point, because when I see a nurse, and I feel like maybe Smile had it right, because I think the nurses and doctors and that actually wore like appropriate, looking scrubs and stuff. But like these movies that are fairly recent that have like the white dresses and especially the little, kind of papery hats or whatever that, had the little like red, cross on them or whatever. They just look so out of place. Like I could believe that in a 1950s or 60s movie, but not anymore. Like you can't set a movie post 99, especially, and have it work that way.
It depends on the town, and you got to remember this is a very stuck in the times town, because they thought that mining was the only means of life in that town, which it might be because it's a really small town, but also really small towns, they don't progress as faster as the rest of America.
I will say this though, I live in coal country. I live near mines. None of my family were actually miners, so I don't have that direct link, but I know plenty of people who've been my patients at my job who were former, mine workers. And we've had scrubs and stuff at our hospitals for over 2 decades at least now at this point. And I mean, small community, mining community. The one thing they did get right with this is the fact that the whole town like going ape shit over like the mine closing. That's a legit thing, because the towns have no infrastructure to support those all, everybody losing their jobs all at the same time. There's no backup. So there's a good reason why everybody was pissed at Tom in this movie for trying to sell the one thing that was keeping the town alive, basically, because there's a lot of towns around here that as soon as the mine pulls up stakes, that town dies. Like, so there's people that still lives there, but I mean, like it's the depression and like just all that stuff that sets in is a big time thing. There's a reason that heroin and opioids are in such high use in some of these smaller towns. They have nothing like else to go on. So we have the 9 hospital workers. We have Jason stabbed through the back of the head and out the eye with a pickaxe. And they did that because, if you remember, Jason Voorhees is missing one of his eyes.
Oh, my God.
As a killer. I'm serious. That's why they did it.
I did not even know.
3 Hanniger mine partygoers are killed, stabbed in the stomach with pickaxe off screen. Michael, from the Halloween movies, is stabbed through the face with a pickaxe. I don't know how that's supposed to relate to how Michael, Myers dies, but I don't know. Like, I've never really seen him stabbed in the face by anything. He's usually shot, so I don't know how that applies. Brandy is half decapitated through the mouth with Frank is killed with a pickaxe to the top of the head.
Yeah.
Celine is uppercutted with a pickaxe into the ceiling lights, which seems like it would be a little extreme, but she is a dwarf.
Yeah.
So, like, as bad as that sounds, the physics don't seem off to me as much.
It doesn't.
In that case.
She's a person of littleness, so.
Yeah. Irene is stabbed in the gut with a pickaxe and found with her heart ripped out. Red is stabbed in the head with a pickaxe and then stabbed at least 9 more times. Ben has his face impaled through a pickaxe. It's actually pushed or kicked down onto it.
That's
actually
sick.
a pretty effective kill.
Yeah.
Megan is found with her heart cut out of her chest. Hers is off screen, and then the "Be Mine Forever" is written above her, which is what got Jensen in trouble because he shouldn't have known that detail.
Correct.
Rosa is killed with a pickaxe and then later found in the dryer, which actually goes back. That goes back and actually harkens to the kill in the first one, which is actually one of the kills I forgot. That kill with Mabel, where she's like burned alive, and that is a fucking sick scene.
And
like,
she's still spinning in the dryer. I loved it. That
actually really good effects on that scene. I got to give them credit.
Yeah,
in the original movie,
it looked real.
Harry Warden is shot by Burke and the rest of the people, right after his big rampage he had. And then the rescue worker at the end of the movie is killed with a pickaxe to the face right before Jensen takes his mining outfit and escapes.
Which is weird because at the end, I swear, and I could be wrong, that the guy was wearing a red T-shirt because I kept saying to myself, that's weird. Why is he wearing a T-shirt in the mines? I feel like they wear more protective gear. But then when Jensen walks out, and I did see the other, safety ones wearing the red protective gear. But I swear that this particular one was wearing a red T-shirt. But when Jensen walks out, or Dean Winchester,
it's one of those thicker mine coats or whatever. Yeah,
I don't know.